Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. The kitchen smelled like burnt toast because she left the bread in too long. Again. She didn't care. She was too busy applying lipstick in the microwave's reflection, adjusting her shirt like she was preparing for a magazine shoot. There were no words between us, just clinks of silverware and the slow ticking of the wall clock. Then she said it. No drama, no build-up, just straight out of a horror film, delivered like it was a grocery list. I'm going to see another man. If you try to stop me, I'll call the police and say you hit me. I didn't even flinch. Not because I was strong. Because I didn't understand what I was hearing. I blinked at her, waiting for a punchline, waiting for her to laugh and say it was some twisted joke. But she didn't laugh. She didn't even look at me. She reached for her phone and started typing. I asked, "Who is he?" She shrugged. "Someone who makes me feel alive." I stood there in my old hoodie and socks with a hole in the toe, holding a chipped coffee mug, feeling like a ghost in my own house. What was I supposed to say? That I paid her dental insurance? That I did the dishes every night for 8 years? That I learned how to fold fitted sheets because she hated doing it? Instead, I said nothing, and she smirked, like she won something. She walked to the door, heels clicking like nails being hammered into a coffin. Our dog didn't even get up to greet her. He just stared, tail still. He knew too. I didn't chase her, didn't scream, didn't block the door. But what she didn't know, what I didn't know, was that the second she stepped off our porch, karma had already buckled its seatbelt. By the time the front door clicked shut behind her, my body was still frozen in place. I hadn't moved from the spot between the kitchen and the hallway. The air was thick, like the house itself was stunned. Our wedding photo still hung on the wall to my right, her forced smile mocking me now. I looked at it and hated myself for ever thinking that moment was real. She had checked out long before she made her announcement. I just hadn't noticed. Or worse, I had noticed and convinced myself I was imagining it. I wandered into the living room and sat down, still clutching the lukewarm coffee mug like it was an anchor keeping me from floating off the planet. I must have sat there for hours. No TV. No phone. Just the sound of the fridge humming and the occasional car passing by outside. When the doorbell rang later that afternoon, I assumed she forgot her keys. Maybe she'd come back to gloat. Maybe to apologize. I didn't know what version of her I was about to face. But it wasn't her. It was a man in uniform, a police officer, standing there like the prequel to a nightmare. For a second, my chest tightened. She did it. She followed through on her threat. I was going to get arrested for something I didn't do. My knees nearly buckled. But then he spoke. "Sir, do you own a dark blue Honda Civic? License ending in 793? "Yes," I said slowly. "That's my wife's car. There's been an accident." The world didn't spin. It stopped. The kind of silence that hit me in that moment wasn't peaceful. It was mechanical, like the whole universe was loading the next scene. He continued, "She's okay, but she's being treated for minor injuries at the scene. We found her wandering away from the car, disoriented, so we stopped her. She seemed under the influence, claimed she had a panic attack, said she was running from someone, from you." There it was. Even after crashing her car, she didn't hesitate. She pulled that same rotten thread. I was the villain in her story now, even in the middle of a literal wreck. "I haven't seen her since she left this morning," I said calmly, my voice shaking anyway. The officer nodded. "We have a witness who says otherwise. Someone saw her screaming at a man in a parking lot 20 minutes before the crash. Said she slapped him. Then she got in her car and sped off. You don't match the description." It wasn't me. Of course it wasn't. But it was someone. Another man. The one she said made her feel alive. And that's when I realized karma didn't need my help. She was already unraveling everything all on her own. But this wasn't justice. Not yet. This was just the spark. What came next would be the fire. She had built a story where I was the monster. But she forgot that monsters don't stay silent forever. That night, the silence in the house felt radioactive. I didn't eat. Didn't turn on a single light. Just sat there, hunched on the edge of the couch with my elbows on my knees, staring into the nothingness like the darkness might answer for her. I kept replaying it in my head. The lipstick, the smug look, the threat, and now the accident. The officer said she was fine. Physically, at least. But mentally, emotionally, that was a whole other car crash. I couldn't sleep, but I also couldn't just sit and do nothing anymore. I opened her laptop. It wasn't out of revenge. I wasn't looking for leverage. I just needed answers. Something to hold on to. Something that would make sense of the wreckage she left in my chest. The laptop wasn't even password protected. Either she thought I was too naive to look, or she wanted me to find everything and collapse under the weight of it. Emails, messages, photos, dozens of them. One guy. The same name kept popping up, Ray. No last name, just Ray. A guy from her gym. A guy she used to laugh about for wearing muscle shirts in January. Turns out he was more than a joke. He was her fantasy, and she was planning to turn that fantasy into a new life. She wrote to him the night before. He won't fight me on this. He never does. He'll cave like always. That was me. The guy who caved. Who avoided conflict. Who let her rewrite the rules of our marriage so she could play house with someone else while I was still doing the dishes. I didn't cry reading those messages. I didn't even feel angry. I felt small. Like I had spent 17 years of my life building a home with someone who had already packed up and moved out inside her mind. But the shock didn't stop there. I dug deeper, not out of curiosity, but survival. If I was going to endure this, I had to know what I was really up against. And that's when I found something she never meant anyone to see. A folder labeled alibi. Inside were fake texts, screenshots she'd made between her and a friend, painting a picture of a volatile marriage. Me yelling. Me threatening her. One message even read, "If he touches me again, I'm going to the cops." It was all fabricated. She had been preparing this for weeks, maybe months. She was setting the stage to not only leave me but to destroy me. In her version of events, she'd be the victim and I'd be the unhinged husband who wouldn't let her go. But here's the thing. Her story only worked if I stayed silent. If I did what I always did, back down. Let her take the lead. Not this time. I copied every message. Every fake screenshot. Every chat with Ray. I backed up everything onto a secure drive. I didn't know what I was going to do with it yet, but I knew I wasn't going to be quiet anymore. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. It was her. One text. No greeting. No apology. Just, "You better not say a word to anyone. I mean it." No explanation for the crash. No, I'm sorry. Just more control. That was the moment I knew. She wasn't scared of me. She was scared of what I might reveal. She had written a script where I played the villain. But what happens when the villain starts speaking? The next day, I made a phone call she never expected. And that's when things really started falling apart. Just not for me. I didn't sleep at all that night. Every creak in the house felt like a warning. Every car passing outside made my stomach twist. I wasn't afraid of her, not in the traditional sense. I was afraid of what someone like her was capable of. Someone who'd spend weeks scripting a fake version of her own marriage just to make her exit look noble. Someone who could stare into the eyes of the man who bought her medicine when she was sick and say, "If you stop me, I'll tell them you hit me." By sunrise, I'd made up my mind. I wasn't going to let her write the ending. I was tired of being a quiet footnote in my own story. So I drove to the one person who would understand how serious this was. My cousin Monroe. We hadn't talked much lately. Life, work, all that. But Monroe used to be a cop. He now worked private security, mostly boring stuff, night shifts at warehouses and occasional corporate investigations. But more importantly, Monroe didn't like lies. I showed him everything. The screenshots, the emails, the folder labeled alibi. First, he didn't say anything. Just scrolled through with his jaw tightening. When he reached the fake text that made me look like some violent psycho, he let out a low whistle. "She was planning to bury you," he muttered. "I know," I said quietly. "I think she still is." He looked at me hard, then leaned back and crossed his arms. "You've got more than enough here to protect yourself. But that's not all you want, is it?" I hesitated. I don't want revenge. I just want people to know the truth. Monroe nodded slowly. Then you're gonna love what I'm about to suggest. That afternoon, we did two things. First, Monroe helped me file a statement with the local department. Not a complaint, not an accusation, just a preemptive record. A quiet log of what I had uncovered, time-stamped and stored. Then came the second step. Monroe pulled some favors and got access to nearby traffic cam footage near the location of her crash. If she really was screaming at someone in that parking lot, like the witness said, there'd be evidence. And oh, there was, clear as day. She stormed out of her car in a strip mall lot, screaming at a tall guy in gym clothes. She slapped him across the face, then shoved him before getting back into her car and peeling out like she was in a movie chase scene. 2 minutes later, she crashed into a parked truck 3 blocks away. But here's the best part. The guy she hit, his insurance company had already filed a claim. He was pressing charges for reckless endangerment and property damage. She was under investigation, and she didn't even know it yet. She was too busy trying to manipulate me into silence. That night she came home. I didn't expect it. She walked in like she still lived there. Like the woman who burned her marriage to the ground had the right to hold the hose. She didn't look surprised to see me. If anything, she looked bored. "Get out," she said flatly, like it was her house now. "I'm not doing this back and forth." I stood up, calmly. No yelling, no shaking, just one sentence. "They know." She froze. I didn't explain. I didn't have to. Her eyes darted. She was doing the math. The car crash, the witness, the fake messages. And she knew something had gone wrong. The story she'd prepared wasn't going to hold. "Who did you talk to?" she hissed. "Someone who still thinks lies should have consequences," I said. Her face changed. For the first time since this began, I saw fear. Not fear of me, but fear of exposure. Her armor cracked. And that's when I realized something. She never believed I'd fight back. She thought I'd crumble like I always did. But now the truth had teeth. And it was hungry. She didn't say a word after I told her, "They know." She just stood in the doorway, clutching her purse with both hands like she was deciding whether to drop it and run or swing it at me. The mask she usually wore, the one that made her look polished, calm, composed, cracked right there in our living room. Her mouth was slightly open, but her eyes were darting, calculating. I knew exactly what she was trying to figure out. Who knew what? How much? Could she still flip this in her favor? I could almost hear her brain scrambling to rework the story she'd been crafting for weeks. I didn't give her time. "I backed up everything," I said. "Every fake text you made. Every message to that guy Ray. The police already have it. The traffic cam footage too. You really should have looked around before starting a performance in public." The panic that flickered across her face wasn't theatrical anymore. It was real. She finally understood that I had slipped out from under her thumb. That I wasn't the fragile, apologizing husband who'd beg her to stay. I was the man she thought would never speak up. And I had spoken loudly. She finally set the purse down. Her voice, when it came, was low and tight. "You went through my stuff?" I tilted my head slightly. "You fabricated evidence to ruin my life and used the threat of a false police report as a weapon, Lana. So yeah, I opened your laptop. You know what I didn't do? Hit you, threaten you, cheat on you. Lie. You're acting like I'm the villain," she snapped, and that was rich. Like she genuinely thought this whole thing could be reframed if she just leaned hard enough on her victim voice. "I was trapped in this marriage. You never listened to me. You never saw me." That one stung. Not because it was true, but because I had tried so hard to see her. For years, I gave her all my energy. Changed shifts to have dinner with her. Took on side gigs to pay off her student loans faster. Learned to cook the meals she liked. I saw her even when she didn't want to be seen. And still, she chose this. Chose to betray me and blame me. I sat back on the couch and let her spin. She started pacing, ranting about how I was overreacting, how it wasn't what it looked like, how Ray was just a distraction, and how she never really planned to leave. The sheer volume of contradictions in her words was astonishing. I just watched. Then she made her mistake. She stopped, faced me again and said, "This doesn't have to blow up. If you drop everything, I'll go quiet too. No police, no public embarrassment. We'll just split. Clean. Quiet." There it was. The deal. She thought she still had cards to play. That she could convince me to bury everything so she could slink away and rebuild her image. But I was done shielding her from the consequences of her own actions. "You don't get to negotiate anymore," I said. "I'm not playing defense." She didn't answer, just stared. Then, almost too casually, she grabbed her phone and walked into the other room, like she had a plan B she hadn't used yet. I followed quietly and watched from the hallway as she made a call. She didn't know I was there. "Hey," she whispered. "We have a problem." He knows. Know everything. Yeah. "I need to disappear for a bit. I'll text you the Airbnb address." That was it. I walked in, slowly, deliberately. Her face turned pale when she realized I'd heard every word. "You're not going anywhere," I said calmly. "Not until I'm done telling the truth." And this time I meant it. She didn't argue, didn't scream, didn't even try to lie her way out of what I heard. Lana just stood there holding her phone, lips parted slightly, as if words were forming but wouldn't come. I didn't press her. I just stared long enough to make it clear that the version of me she used to manipulate, the quiet one, the people pleaser, the apologetic husband, was gone. She tried to brush past me, but I didn't move. "Who were you calling?" I asked, even though I already knew. "Ray." She gave a half-laugh that had no humor in it. "You don't get to ask questions now, Elwood." But I did. And I had one more. One I'd been holding on to since I found her alibi folder. "Did you ever love me? Or was I just a safety net until something shinier came along?" Her face twitched, and for a brief second I thought she might actually be honest. "I don't know," she said flatly, which somehow hurt more than a straight no. I stepped aside, letting her walk out. This time I didn't care where she went, because the difference now was that I had control over the story. And Lana? She was unraveling faster than she could keep up. But I wasn't prepared for what would happen next. The following afternoon, I received a message from someone I didn't recognize. A woman named Teresa. Her first line made my skin crawl. "You don't know me, but I think my husband is sleeping with your wife." I stared at the screen, stunned. Teresa explained that she'd found deleted messages on her husband's backup cloud account. His name was Raymond. Ray. She'd been suspicious for a while. Late-night workouts, sudden phone privacy, and a credit card statement that showed dinners for 2 on nights he claimed he was training alone. Sound familiar? She'd done her own digging. Tracked down receipts, time logs, even security footage from the gym. When she confronted him, he didn't deny it. He just blamed me. Said Lana was trapped in an abusive marriage, and that he was rescuing her. That's when Teresa went looking, and she found me. We talked for nearly an hour. Shared evidence. Compared stories. Everything lined up. The fake texts. The false accusations. The manipulation. But the thing that tied it all together, the thing that flipped the script entirely, was what Teresa revealed at the end of our call. Ray has a sealed complaint against him from a former coworker. Sexual coercion. It was never made public because the company settled. But I found the records through an old lawyer friend. "Elwood, your wife isn't the first woman he's tried to save. He does this. Targets women in unstable marriages. Makes them feel like victims. Then gets in their heads." The realization hit me like a freight train. Lana had been used just like me. Not that it excused what she did, but suddenly the power dynamic made more sense. Ray was a predator. Charming, manipulative, and practiced. He didn't just seduce women. He rewired them. The next step was clear. Teresa and I decided to expose them. Together. We didn't do anything illegal. No doxing. No harassment. Just the truth. We compiled a timeline, collected statements, and made a quiet but thorough report to the proper authorities, including a formal warning to Ray's gym management. Teresa also reached out to the woman from the sealed case. And me? I finally wrote down everything. Every lie, every message, every detail, and filed it away. because people like Ray and Lana count on silence. They feed on it. But now, there were two of us who weren't afraid to talk anymore. And the moment Lana found out what we were doing, her entire illusion shattered. I didn't think I'd hear from Lana again after she stormed out that night, but of course I did. She messaged me 2 days later, short, sharp, and soaked in fake concern. "You're escalating this. You're ruining both our lives. Can we talk like adults?" I didn't reply, because by then, the truth had already started doing its job. Teresa and I had submitted everything. The evidence had gone to Ray's gym board, who launched an internal review. Teresa's lawyer had contacted the company that buried the previous case. Apparently, Ray had signed a non-disclosure agreement, but the victim hadn't. She was ready to talk, ready to confirm what he did and how he did it. Meanwhile, word was spreading inside our neighborhood. I hadn't said anything to anyone personally, but someone, maybe Monroe, maybe someone from the gym staff, had tipped off just enough people to spark whispers. And in a community like ours, whispers travel like wildfires. Lana lost control of the narrative faster than I imagined. I heard from our mutual friends that she was trying to spin the story. She told some that I'd gone vindictive after she tried to leave peacefully. Told others I was harassing her, stalking her, the usual script. But it didn't stick. Not when people started learning what was on the laptop. Not when the woman from Ray's past came forward with receipts. Not when another gym member anonymously shared screenshots of Ray flirting with yet another married woman. This time barely 2 weeks after Lana's car crash. The image Lana had worked so hard to preserve, strong, misunderstood, brave enough to leave her toxic husband, began to crack. And when it cracked, it crumbled. The first real hit came when her boss called her into HR. I wasn't there, obviously, but I knew it had to do with the messages she sent from her work email, the ones Teresa found. Things she'd written to Ray about me, filled with lies and venom, now lived in her professional inbox. And corporations don't love messy personal lives leaking into company devices. She didn't get fired. Not immediately, but she was put on administrative leave. The second hit came from her family. Her sister, who always took her side no matter what, texted me out of nowhere. I hadn't spoken to her in years. She wrote, "I don't know what to believe anymore, but I'm sorry. I didn't know it was this bad." That was the moment it truly sank in for me. Lana wasn't just losing control of her image. She was losing her power, her ability to twist the truth and weaponize perception. And the more she scrambled to save face, the more her lies exposed themselves. Still, I didn't gloat. I didn't blast anything publicly. I stayed quiet, measured, let her spin herself into a corner. Because the truth doesn't need shouting when it's armed with receipts. And then, just when I thought she'd hit bottom, I received a letter, handwritten, from her. It wasn't an apology. Of course not. It was a plea. She said she didn't know who she was anymore. That Ray had gotten into her head. That she should have known better. That maybe we could find peace. But what stunned me most was what came at the end. "I didn't expect you to fight back. I always thought you'd break." There it was. Her honest confession, not of cheating, not of betrayal, but of her expectations. She had counted on me being too weak to stand up. That's what made her bold. That's why she pushed so far. And when I didn't break, when I held the mirror up to her actions, she broke instead. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like stepping out of a fog I hadn't realized I was in for years. And now, finally, I could see clearly. I didn't respond to her letter. Not with anger, not with forgiveness. I just folded it, tucked it into a drawer I rarely open, and let it sit there. Not as a keepsake, but as a reminder of who I used to be. That letter didn't change anything. It didn't fix the damage or rewrite the past. But it confirmed what I'd suspected deep down. Lana had never believed I had a voice of my own. But I do. I found it. And once I stopped trying to fix a version of love that only I believed in, something surprising happened. Peace. Real peace. The kind that doesn't come from getting revenge or proving someone wrong, but from knowing you didn't let them erase you. Teresa and I still talk occasionally. Not about Ray anymore, that chapter's closed for both of us. She filed for divorce. Quietly. with dignity. I admired that. She said something once that stuck with me. We can't choose who hurts us, but we can choose who we become afterward. I wrote that down on a sticky note and kept it on my mirror. Every morning, it reminds me that I did become someone different, someone stronger, someone honest. The house feels lighter now. I painted the walls a different color, gave away the furniture she picked. Even the dog seems more relaxed. Funny how much tension seeps into the cracks when someone toxic lives with you. Takes time to clear it out, but it's possible. I don't hate Lana. I don't wish her pain. I hope she finds whatever part of herself she lost along the way. But I also hope she never crosses paths with someone too afraid to speak up again. As for me, I'm doing okay. No dramatic new love ending. No sudden epiphany wrapped in a bow. Just quiet, clean air, honest days, and the kind of freedom that only comes after surviving something you thought would destroy you. Thanks for listening to my story here on Reddit Confessions. Now it's your turn. Have you ever experienced a moment when someone revealed who they really were, and it changed everything? Let me know in the comments. I read them all. And if this story meant something to you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who might need to hear it. Until next time, stay strong, stay honest, and stay true to you.